one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Dr. Delatorre, you have reports for the board?
Acting President Woodruff, members of the board, esteemed guests, we do. We've got two reports. One, a formal presentation surrounding our program to support English language learners, and the second is the board's monthly opportunity to speak to your internal auditor relative to her work. With that, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our Director of Academic Language Programs, Ms. Luisa Aguirre Baiza. The microphone.
Good evening. How are you? I believe I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this quick and speed, and I know you guys were given a copy of all this. So my name's Luisa Aguirre Baez. I'm the Director for the Academic Language Programs Department. I'm going to present to you today an overview of our English language learner programs that we have. I'm going to make it as simple as I possibly can, talking about a continuous improvement process, the planning, the doing, the checking, the acting, or what we call reviewing the data, looking at the program structure, talking about team accountability, and then targeted support. I'm going to start, of course, with the good news. In terms of how we compare with the region and the state, that blue bar that you see right there is Isleta. So you'll see over the course of the last 2 years, we'll have this year's data once October comes and all of the data is finalized. But you'll see we do well above everybody else. This is specific to English language learners in reading and writing. And then looking at other comparable districts on the next slide, you'll see we do relatively well with other districts that have either dual language or early exit programs and or populations like ours that are border city towns. So you'll see that even when everybody takes a dip, we still stay pretty close to above the norm for everybody else. And then we're looking at English language learners for English 1 and 2. You'll see that for the high school level. You'll see again, well above the state in the region. And then again, with English 1 and 2 being comparable to other districts with our similar size, you'll see that Isleta does relatively well. Okay? So just like anything else, when you're doing well, you want to make sure you do better. You saw some declines in there, even though we continue to be on top. Our purpose is to make sure that we're continuously looking at the data and making sure that we stay above the state and the region averages. And then we want to make sure that we stop the decline. So I'm going to focus on some of those things that we're doing and that we have been doing through the past 3 years in terms of how we stop those declines, okay? I'll start with our dual language program, We're very, very happy to say that every single elementary campus has our dual language program, which is awesome. In our middle schools, you'll see we're in 5 different campuses there, and in our high schools, we're in 5 different campuses as well. For our high school with our dual language courting ceremony, which we just had earlier in May, J.M. Hanks was the first time that they crossed the stage with their dual language participants, so we're really excited about their program that continues to grow. This is what our dual language model looks like at the elementary level. So you'll see everything that's in blue is in Spanish, everything that's in green is in English, and of course this is based on best practices and research that we look at, and also maintaining our tradition of our dual language program. The addition that we've added over the course of the last 3 years is that academic language development piece, that last little row that you see there on the bottom, and that's where we've added our intervention piece. So if students are spending the majority of their day in English, we want to provide some of that Spanish intervention and some of that balance to the language. If they're spending the majority of their day in Spanish, we want to make sure we provide that intervention. So the teacher at any given moment can provide that intervention at any given time. You see that we have a red box over the 2nd and 3rd grade, and this is where we transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So it's really important that we build the foundation in kinder through 2nd grade of making sure that our kids learn to read in Spanish, their native language that they come to us with. And once they have that basic foundation, then we begin the transfer into the English literacy pieces. And one comment that a principal made today, in fact, was we really just have to instill the love of reading. So this is something we really are looking closely at in the second and third grade levels to make sure that we're instilling that love of reading first and foremost and still maintaining that literacy growth as well. This is our continuum. So you'll see again where we continue this program. That's something that's unique to our district, not only in the state, but in the region as well, obviously, where we make sure that we have that dual language opportunities across the board all the way through high school. And now with House Bill 5, we've had the opportunity to make sure that even more students graduate bilingual and biliterate, whether they started in our program since elementary or if they started in the high school program. So that's something that we're really excited about as well. Couple of things about when we're talking about our ESL program. Back in 2010 is when TEA instilled some changes. We used to just look at students that were in their first or third year, between their first and third year of being in the United States. And since 2010, we make sure that we look at their proficiency levels as provided by TELPAS. So here you'll see our middle school program. We make sure that all middle school students are served as long as they're coded English language learners and they're not parent denials. We make sure that they're receiving some kind of services in our program. And then for high school students, it's again looking at the beginner and intermediate students as well. Something unique that we do in Isleta is that we provide additional services throughout. So besides just the ESL program, we're offering the Reading Sheltered course for our students, and that's what you'll see on the following page. The purpose of the Reading Sheltered course is to make sure that we have a double block for our ESL students. So just the regular 45-minute, the ESL course is equivalent to the regular students' English course. So as long as they're in an ESL course, they'll get that regular English credit. And we offer a Reading Sheltered course so that they get a 90-minute block, they get a double block. So now that the students can be able to negotiate both language and content. So we give the teacher a little bit more time to work with the students, and then we offer our different programs and our scaffolding pieces within that program, within those 90 minutes as well, to really give that teacher an opportunity to establish both the cognitive and the linguistic support. We do the same thing in high school. Again, you saw the law where we only have to serve those that are beginners and intermediate, but we go above and beyond and serve our advanced and our advanced high students. Why do we serve our advanced and our advanced high students? Because we have several students that we consider long-term ELLs. A long-term ELL is a student that's been here for 6 or more years, has been part of our program, has been here in the United States, and still can't make exit criteria. That is something that we have going on in the Isleta Independent School District. We have quite a bit. About 83% of our kids are long-term ELL students. So by offering the advanced and the advanced high students the opportunity to still make exit criteria, supports them again in that ESL class and in that Reading Shelter course to give them that additional support. By law, we don't have to serve the advanced and the advanced high students in high school, but it's important enough for us to make sure that they meet that exit criteria. And in alignment with House Bill 5, the only way they can get that biliterate acknowledgement through House Bill 5 is if they actually meet exit criteria. So this is just another opportunity to make sure that they meet the exit criteria for our kids. So in summary, with the structure, again, our focus is on literacy. As you saw the red box, you saw the continuum, the House Bill 5 acknowledgement, as I mentioned, and then, of course, making sure that we provide the research-based resources and training coupled with best practices, obviously. So I'm going to go into team accountability, the third bullet that I have there, and I want to focus a little bit on TELPAS. The TELPAS is the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, and what this allows us to do is focus on the progress the students are making. A lot of times what you see in our district is that students will make 290 points gains, let's say, in their STAR scores. In some cases, that 290-point gain will allow them to exit STAR, and in some cases, that 290 points still gets them not passing STAR, but they're going in the right direction. So we're always focusing on progress. Progress means we're moving in the right direction. And it's administered from kinder through 12th grade, so it's a great measure for the teachers to see when they start their kids at the beginning of the year and to see how much progress they made at the end of the year. They'll get that data before the school year is over. They generally get it in April or May. So it's a nice piece of data that they have. They already know how much progress they made with their kids in that year. And it's a great opportunity for principals and coaches to have that conversation as to who's making progress and who isn't making progress. So that's a tool that we really, really hone in on. So for elementary, let me just kind of show you, and I color-coded it here for you. Right now, we have, on average, about 50% of our kids making progress. So you'll see up at the top in the green, North Star and Tierra del Sol, 74% of their kids are making progress. Then you'll see in the blue, that's where we have our campuses that are in the 60s. And then you'll see in the yellow, our campuses that are in the 50s. And then in the red, you'll see our campuses in the 40s. So the idea, again, is to make sure that we increase the amount of students, the percentage of students that are making the progress pieces in there, okay? Again, and this helps deter the long-term ELL, and then this helps, obviously, it has a correlation to STAR passing, and I'll show you that data in a little bit. In middle school, you'll see that same data. So Alicia Chacon Young Women's Eastwood Knolls in the 80s and high 70s. The blue, again, in the 60s. In the orange, you have the 50s, and then in the red, you have the 40s. And then high school, you'll have your 50s, and then you'll have your 40s. So one thing you'll start noticing, the older the student gets and the longer that they've been here in the United States, the more 6+ year students that we have, the harder it is for them to make those proficiency levels and ultimately make that exit criteria.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes, ma'am.
While you're on this slide, I noticed Bel Air Middle School is not in that list. Is there, because they're a new school, or?
That would be a typo on my part. I will find out what that Bel Air, do you have that, Dr. Sol? The Bel Air Middle School? We'll find that data for you on there.
Thank you.
And it's something we should be really proud of, because I'll tell you a little story about Bel Air Middle School. We did some great things at Bel Air Middle School. We have a new ESL teacher there, Mr. Phil Sena, 7th grade teacher. He increased by 22 percentage points just this year alone. He did an amazing job, and Bel Air Middle School had 44 exits this year. So that was definitely not purposefully left off, because they have a lot to be proud of at Bel Air Middle School. They did a really good job. Okay, so with team accountability, again, we want to make sure that we make more progress, more than 50%. Make sure that we really hone in on the TELPAS process. It's a good process, and it's only getting better, so we want to make sure that we have some fidelity to that, and then making sure that we have the academic language models and the consistency with our programs to help build that growth. So you'll see some of those campuses that we need to work more closely in. So here's a STAR TELPAS connection, if you will. And we're looking at 5th grade, 8th grade, and then 9th through 12th, 5th and 8th, obviously for SSI purposes, but you'll see that first row, 5th grade, 891 LEP-coded students. Of those 891 students, you'll see 742 have been here for 5+ years, okay, 5+ years. So that's 83%, that's where I got that from. Of those 891 students, 727 of them tested and started reading. And of that 727, 64% of them passed. So the visual that I want to show you here is when you have 83% that are your long-term ELLs, you want your passing rate to be almost equivalent, if not higher, because they've been here long enough for us. So those are the areas that we need to make sure that we don't have those declines. We want to see that increasing. We want to see more kids passing. And then going back to what I said earlier, the older they get, the more difficult it is. So you'll see in 8th grade, 595 students, 73% of them long-term ELLs, 595 actually tested, only 53% of those kids actually passed. And then 9th through 12th grade, 1,594 ELLs, 55.7% of those long-term ELLs, 1,529 actually testing, excuse me, and only 23% making that exit, right? They're making the progress on there, meeting the standard in their EOCs. Okay? So this is some of the pieces that we need to get better at. Some TELPAS 3-year historical data, 14, 15, and 16. You'll see we've been kind of standard. We went up a little bit in 15, 16, then went down again this year. But you'll see our average percent of students meeting yearly progress is about 50%. So that, if we can hone in on that and get them to make more progress on there, you'll start seeing some of those results there as well. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. This is our 2nd year with our dual language model for our elementary levels, and this is our 1st year with our ESL model support that we have with our middle school and high school students. So we hope to see some of that getting up a little bit. Okay, so in summary, collaboration and fidelity, this is just where we're constantly working together. A lot of our high schools have a hard time with that reading sheltered course, scheduling and giving that support, as do some of our middle schools. But once we start showing them the data and once we start showing them the benefits of having that, the students having that extra time, and then coupled with the resources and the professional development support that we give them, that's where the rubber meets the road, if you will, and it comes into play where these students need a little bit more time. They don't need 90 minutes of the same content. They need 45 and 45, so they can stay in course with what the year at a glance, what their pacing guide is, and they can also have those support systems in there, those scaffold pieces that they need for the language. So that's the cognitive and the linguistic pieces coming together. That's why we like that double block.
Ms. Woodruff?
Go
I had a
ahead,
question
Mr.
for you. You
Reese.
said that your high schools are having a problem with that. Is it not possible that on the reading shelter issue, that each high school would have a different need and that there might be a different solution than one solution across the district?
Yes, so as far as scheduling purposes, there are, but your traditional ELL student will technically have the same issues in there, which is once you identify what the linguistic issues are, you can determine immediately whether those students are historically making progress or aren't making progress. So the needs of the students don't necessarily vary very much, but you're absolutely correct. The needs of the campus might vary quite a bit in that they don't have enough ESL certified teachers or that they can't make the schedule work for whatever reasons. Those are the kinds of needs that might be diverse. But the student needs, and when we can target what they're linguistic, it's usually very not different. It's affective, it's social emotional, or it's cognitive. So we can linguistic and we can tell right away.
So is there any flexibility for the principals and the staff of those particular schools to ask you to go in a different direction?
Any flexibility as far as what?
We have a district plan, correct?
Yes,
About how
sir.
we want to accomplish things.
Yes, sir.
They come and tell you, and I'll just pick East High School because that's my school.
Yes, sir.
They come and tell you, this doesn't work for us because of this and this and this reason. We believe that this would work. It seems like a reasonable plan. Is that something the district would allow, or do you continue to insist that they go in the direction that the district has set?
For advanced and advanced high students, we have all the flexibility in the world. For the beginners and the intermediates, we have to prove to the state that we have that additional support. So it has to be the double block for our beginners and intermediates. Advanced and advanced highs, yes, sir, we do have flexibility.
Thank you.
Was there another question?
Did you? No?
Okay, so we'll move on to targeted support. We call this the YISD Angels piece. 57% made progress in the Bel Air Middle School. Woodruff. We call it YISD Angels because every time we do a professional development, we see a lot of numbers, we do a lot of data, we have different funding accounts, and we have different compliance issues that come into play, but we always try to put a face to the data. Always, always, always. So just so happens this year we've been honing in on a particular student that was named Angel. We named him Angel. And this particular student was in the 8th grade at one of our middle school campuses, and we saw that he could have met exit criteria in 5th grade. He took the star for the second time and he passed. For whatever reason, different reasons, we found some LPAC inconsistencies with the LPAC coordinator, where maybe they didn't go back and review that student's data. We saw some inconsistencies in that he bounced from one campus to the other in the elementary, so he was in a dual, then he was in an early exit. As you recall, prior to 3 years ago, we had all kinds of different programs in the district. So we saw all those little inconsistency pieces in here that we were like, wow, this poor kid, this one kid got stuck. This kid fell through the cracks. And so we go through all of that data and through that number crunching because usually, like you said, Mr. Ramirez, why do I have to have that additional reading shelter? Something can't work, and we start looking at the data, and so when we see this kid, he's a kid that has not made progress for a while. For the last 3 years, he hasn't made progress. But just to say he didn't make progress, that doesn't mean the teacher failed him, that doesn't mean that it was a bad program, that doesn't mean that he had the wrong resources, but we get to go back and read and sort of research everything so we can find out, was it the program? Was it a resource? Was it a teacher? And in this particular case, it was a compilation of a lot of things with this student. So the reason we bring these kinds of things up to the forefront is because when we're making instructional decisions, those are some of the things that come into play that make it unique from one campus to another. But that child's particular needs are that he's got to start making progress, and he's got to start making gains, number one. And number two, we need to kind of be honest with him and tell him, mijo, you once made it. And we failed you, so you can do it again. We know you can do it again. So it was a great opportunity for us to talk with the campus, for us to talk with the teachers and for us to talk with the student in there and really work through some of those inconsistencies that we found in there. So some of the influential factors that our angels come with is they might be entering. We have a dual language program, and we say that students come to us and we build their native language, right? So we build Spanish first in our kinder through second grade, as I told you. When we test them both in Spanish literacy and we test them in English literacy. We have several cases where and it's a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being the best, 4 being fluent, proficient, where the kids come in a 1 in Spanish and a 1 in English. So to say that we're building their native language, they really don't they don't come to us with a native language because there's not a proficiency level that we can say this child was ready for kinder, this child was ready for first grade. So that's some of the things that happen, and they happen across the border towns, but in particular, they definitely happen at our area here. We have newcomers. Newcomers get to come whenever they want to come. So we don't get to say only newcomers in kinder. They can come in 5th grade, they can come in 8th grade, they can come, many come. As you saw the numbers, we only had 23% in the secondary 9 through 12 that were actually long-term ELLs. That means the rest are newcomers. So we have a bunch of kids coming in high school that are been here for only 1 to 3 years. So there are a newcomer program in there. Some of our inconsistencies that I talked to you about, and then some that just haven't had the additional intervention supports beyond the linguistics. So if we know they haven't made linguistic progress, but we're going back and looking at the cognitive issues, we might have found that some of these kids needed some additional response to intervention. Unlike special education, there isn't a big ARD committee for these kids. So they get handled just like everybody else. But all the paperwork and everything else that comes with it, their test does not have anything special like some of our STAR Alt does. They might have some accommodations, longer time, some translation pieces, those kinds of things. But sometimes we need to look beyond the linguistic side, and if a student cannot communicate to us in any language, in English or in Spanish, it's hard for us to determine what some of those cognitive disabilities are. And so in some cases, they come to us in kinder or first grade, and we find out right around 2nd or 3rd grade that the student actually had a learning disability and not a language disability. So that's something that happens very commonly in our district as well. So things that can influence what we do is make sure that the LPAC is well-informed and has good professional development and understands what their role is as an advocate. Like we mentioned with Angel, the Angel always had an LPAC coordinator, so something could have been done a lot sooner with Angel. Fidelity to the programs. Again, prior to 3 years ago, we had a mix of different elementary programs, and we had people that really hadn't adjusted to the 2010 law that said, we're looking at proficiency levels, not looking at whether you're in the first 3 years. So all of those things we've kind of cleaned up and started changing within the last 3 years. The collaboration across the board, we've talked extensively with obviously the cabinet members and with our department people, just trying to get everybody on board and making sure that we're all here for a common purpose. And then looking at the specific needs of the English language learner based on their proficiency level as well. So a teacher, let's just say a regular 5th grade teacher, she might have a whole bunch of beginner students and a whole bunch of advanced high students. Well, she's the 5th grade bilingual teacher, so she's going to have those groups of kids in her classroom, and the way that you teach advanced high student and the way that you teach a beginner student is very different. A beginner student doesn't even understand the academic English language at grade level, the beginner and the intermediate student, whereas your advanced and your advanced high student will understand quite a few things at grade level. So you have a teacher that's really having to work sometimes within 2 to 3 grade levels, and she's actually just a 5th grade teacher. So really honing in on their specific proficiency level needs. And then making sure that we have strong academic language models. When you have a dual language program, specifically in the early years, you want a lot of good Spanish speakers. You want a good Spanish models. When your numbers start decreasing, your enrollment starts going down, you also need that same amount of academic English language models as well. So really finding that good balance in the campus is crucial, and it's important to make sure that the teacher themselves is a good academic language model. So that's something that we're constantly struggling with and always working with our principals to help them find a way to help these teachers become proficient in either the Spanish or the English, and in our case, we would like them proficient in both. Okay. This is just some targeted support. We kind of just laid it out for you in a chart: kinder first, second, third, 4th through 8th, 9th through 12th, and then non-ELL courses. So these are all words I'm sure that many of you have heard already before: iStation and Imagine Learning. Those are all additional resources that we're looking at for Lexile levels, where we can find intervention opportunities, linguistic and cognitive pieces in there. You'll see GEL and WELL, that's specific to English language learners, so Journey into English language learning. And working with English language learners, 2 programs that we just introduced this year, really building the academic language proficiency of these students. Imagine Learning in Español, specifically targeted at our pre-kinder, kinder, first grade students to make sure that we're reaching all of those learning to read gaps in Spanish, to make sure that they're actually reading at grade level as well. And then at the upper grades, we have Achieve 3000 and English 3D. We're really excited about Achieve 3000. It's 100% Lexile based. So it gives the student an opportunity to give some beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of year assessments and to see their growth. So they get to decide they want to be like a gamer when they grow up. They want to learn how to do coding and gaming and build those kinds of things. And it'll tell them exactly what the Lexile proficiency level should be for that particular job, thinking again with college and career readiness in mind. And then the program is aligned to help them build to that Lexile level. So it's something really cool, really exciting that we've introduced again this year as well. English 3D, we had the great fortune of working with Dr. Kate Kinsella this year, and we're actually working with her again for next year. And she was the author of English 3D. Her specialty is working with long-term English language learners. And so she wrote an entire series on supporting these kids and giving those scaffolds. And again, that's what we encourage in that 90-minute block. So they're working through their pacing guide and then giving those students those scaffold pieces. And what that basically looks like is if everybody else is reading Shakespeare, but all they're really trying to do is look at author's purpose and inferencing, then we give them another piece of literature that builds author's purpose and inferencing that is at that student's reading level to help them get to the expectation, to the mastery of the expectation that everybody else is expected to get to. So that's something that we're very proud of. And then for our non-English language learner courses, our non-ESL courses, we're doing sheltered instruction throughout. We just sent a team to get fully certified, and so we're constantly offering support. And I know Mr. Boatwright's in the audience still, there he is. That's somebody that we're really proud of at his campus because he recognized, even though the Eastwood feeder pattern, very high achieving feeder pattern, their academic achievement gap, the difference between their all students and their ELLs was getting a little bit bigger than we wanted it to be, and it wasn't closing. So
I
he saw.
believe Mr. Kudir has a question for you.
Just a quick
Yeah.
question. As far as these programs that you're implementing, the Achieve 3000, the English 3D, how long is the commitment to using these programs? Because I know a lot of times the frustration with teachers is that you implement a program 1 year, they start learning it, and then by the time the next year rolls around, it's gone. So what is the commitment to these programs as far as long-term?
Right now, we have a 3 to 5 year commitment with them because we want to see results. And so we are not introducing anything new this year. Like I said, this was our first year with GELS and WELLS and our first year with English 3D and Achieve. Nothing else new had been introduced prior to the last 3 years, and so we're committed to staying with those.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up. On the programs, are they able to access these programs at home so
Yes,
they
sir.
can continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we're really excited actually about Achieve 3000. I don't know if we have that data on hand, but we had a high percentage of students that were actually accessing Achieve 3000 on their own at home, which was awesome because their Lexile levels were really, again, Bel Air being one of our greatest attributes for that Bel Air Middle School.
Can I just follow up real quick? Are all these programs available to all high schools or only high schools that have the dual language program?
All high schools, all high schools,
have-
all middle schools, all
So
elementary
all
schools.
ELL
Yes,
classes
sir.
will have? okay.
Every single person. It's district-wide. 14,590 login hours after school time. So that was 65% of the students that were logging in were using it on their own time. Okay. So again, that targeted support, looking at it from the teacher perspective, providing all those questions that you're asking, the support and the continuous, that is all that we focus on. We don't introduce anything new to them. We do it through monthly LPAC coordinator meetings. We work with the principal, obviously with the assistant principal as well. We created an ELPS SharePoint specifically with ELL data on there. We have Google Classroom, so it's always in hand for the teacher. Everything that we train, we provide for them so they get that live data, videos, just-in-time training as well. And then for student support, again, we go in there and look specifically at the proficiency levels and their needs between the beginner, the intermediate, the advanced high, which I explained. And then looking at that reading sheltered course and making sure that we offer the ESL certification for our teachers and the support within that 90-minute block, continuing working with our departments, And then, of course, having our continuous celebrations for our kids with our student conference, with our dual language courting ceremony. And then this year, we'll get the opportunity to send our kids to La Cosecha in Albuquerque. And then they'll come back and do a conference for their peers as well. So that's something we're excited about.
Can I
We have another question.
Yes,
just real quick, as far as our ALLs, by the time they become juniors and seniors, are all of them tested for TSI to make sure that they're college ready? And do we have data to see where their progress has been and how many of them are actually college ready by the time they graduate?
Good evening. Yes, the answer is we do test all students in TSI by their senior year. But we actually start testing a lot of our students even after 8th grade year because we have some going and taking dual credit courses. But by the time they're seniors, every child should have a TSI assessment done.
And do we track the data as far as how many of our ELLs by the time they graduate our high schools are college ready through TSI?
We do not have that. I don't know if we could and we can. We can look at that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
you're welcome. So I think I summarized everything in there on how we work with the factors that were in criteria and still getting a ton of content in Spanish and getting the advanced Spanish levels if we haven't mastered the English piece because they're out of options.
So basically, you're telling me that it's a work in progress?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about the Riverside feeder pattern? I mean, I don't see Riverside represented on any of these lists,
Or Park?
Yeah.
or Parkland.
Riverside Middle School, or excuse me, Riverside High School, we've lost, they don't have any students that continue to use dual language at the high school level. They haven't for 2 years. So we're building that again through our elementaries and then building it through our middle schools as well. So he has one strand in the middle school going through right now that will be an 8th grader next year. So we'll hope to have that group of students that will be able to take those courses in there. We need a full course of kids to provide it. If we don't get a full course, if we get a sprinkling of kids, anywhere from 5 to 15, we will work with those kids and give them some of the coursework that they need so that they can graduate either with the dual language aestheticized or the dual language House Bill 5 biliteracy acknowledgement. Same with Parkland as well. Our numbers diminish greatly once they get out of elementary school as far as interest in continuing with the dual.
As far as ELL teachers, you were talking about how a lot of our ELL teachers have to teach advanced high and beginners in the same classroom. What is the classroom size students to teachers, the ratio?
So by law, 22-1 from 4th grade below, and then we have a 25-1 ratio for everybody else in our district, so we keep it pretty
And that's the
average.
same for the ELL classes also have that
Yes,
ratio?
sir. That's
Okay.
correct.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Just a second. We changed our mind. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, no, sir. My pleasure.
On the sheltered instructional practices, can you send me a link, or can you send a link to the board, just so we can look at what the research is behind that, and just to help us better understand that concept?
For the sheltered reading course or just sheltered instructional practices in
Yes, ma'am.
general? Absolutely.
And also, too, you were talking about this expert that you had.
Be okay to work with Hellas to get a resolution. I believe after that, then we'll see if we bring to board for taking action, I think.
Mr. Amidas?
Thank you, Ms. Woodruff. I had actually brought that with me today because I thought we had resolved that issue. Is there another one? Okay.
This is this one is not the same testing period. When I say testing period, meaning the last December and January when we presented to you, we had reviewed it. It was from, okay, I forgot the review period, but this time we reviewed the subsequent payroll cycle because we were preparing to do the closeout audit, and so our office did the prevailing wage audit while
School District Board of Trustees for June 20th, 2017, and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and/or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action on said items at June 20th, 2017 regular board trustees meeting. So we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the consent items, right? We'll go ahead and start with the consent items, and consent item number 1. If you have a question, please stop me.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
And I'm only saying this for our new board members and also because it wouldn't hurt me
Absolutely.
as well. Can you just briefly talk about or have someone explain the YSD Public Facility Corporation? And because the first time I had to do that, I
That's a good
struggled with that.
idea. And I
Yes,
think
thank
I'm
you.
going to hand that over to Dr. Delatorre.
Ms. Leeper, she'll do the best.
There we go.
So I'm going to try to give you high-level facts about the way this works. So as you may know, whenever the district issues debt, we have to have voter approval to do that. And we levy against the property tax owners to pay that debt back, right? Public Facilities Corporation is a different mechanism. It is you all sitting as a corporation acting on our behalf, and you can also sell debt. However, we cannot levy against the taxpayer to pay that debt back. So when I come to you with the annual operating budget, you'll notice there's about $2 million in there every year where we're paying back this Public Facilities Corporation debt. The corporation was formed around 2008, and there were lease purchases, there were some improvements, I think one of the Del Valle schools, but that corporation has to stay in existence. Every time there's a new election, we have to reseat the board of directors for that corporation. It will maintain its existence until we pay off all of the debt that's associated with it. We don't have any intentions of issuing other debt, but that corporation will have to live until we're through with the existing debt. Does that make sense?
And may I add that the bylaws provide that the trustees of the district are the trustees for the corporation, but you have to elect officers if there's been a change in the trustees. So that's why in the board meeting tomorrow night, you're going to be electing officers for the public.
Thank you. Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Rosales.
What is the amount of debt complete? Do you have any idea at all?
No.
don't put me
You know what,
on the
I
spot.
could guess based on the debt service, but I'd rather not. I will bring you an answer tomorrow. Will that
Okay,
be okay?
fair
I
enough.
can't access it. I was looking quickly to see if I could get the amount, and I cannot, but I
All
will
right.
bring it to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have one more question. So is there a limit to how much debt we can have for this particular corporation?
I will look at the bylaws and see if there's a limit there, but technically, it's based on what you can pay back out of your operating fund. If you think about what our operating fund is made up of, that's 85% people. So are there limits? Practically, yes.
Yes,
Are there in the bylaws? I don't know, but I can look and I'll also bring that back to you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a question? We're good? Okay, so we'll go to the consent items, and we'll go to consent item number 1. And that's approve the minutes of May 8th workshop, May 10th board meeting, and May 17th, 2017 special board meeting and canvas election. Any questions? Okay, number 2, approval regarding child nutrition services. Number 3, monthly financial statements, including quarterly investment reports as of April 30th, 2017. Number 4, donation from Imagine Learning in the amount of $25,000 for the 2017-18 convocation event. I would like to pull that one for a thank you. Okay, number 5, approve the disposable of unusable surplus portables by sale at a public auction to be held June 24th, 2017. Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
I'd just like to say thanks to Ms. Leeper for looking into the possibility of selling those to one of our sister districts.
It was a great idea, and I had lots of help from this team.
Okay, thank you, team, for trying to do that.
Okay. Number 6, approval of award YSD cooperative requisition with Abacus Computers, Inc. for student devices. I had a question about that one. Oh, it says it here, though. I see the answer here. Thank you. Okay. Number 7, approval of award of YSD solicitation number 217031 RFP academic resources. Number 8, approval of award of YSD solicitation number 217040 RFP mental health services. Number 9, approval of award of YSD solicitation number 217042 RFP charter bus services. Yes, Mr. Ramirez.
I don't know who I direct this to. I just want to talk about just the contract and about the issue of safety, doing the safety reviews for these bus companies. I'm assuming that's part of the contract review, and we look at their history and have certain requirements for those bus drivers, including background checks on the drivers because they're around our kids and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. We do go through a process when we evaluate their bids. They submit a solicitation, and we review that solicitation before making a final selection.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rosales.
I came, I guess, through my thought process, because of the tragedy that happened on these students that came back from Lubbock. And again, I don't know if this is something that is doable, but I would certainly like to at least explore the possibility of avoiding 2-lane highways in New Mexico and 2-lane highways in Texas. Meaning, if the routes that are taken, if we could look into the possibility of utilizing Interstate 10. I know it's a long ways if you're going from, let's say, Amarillo or Lubbock, or let's say Lubbock to El Paso. But I would rather spend 2 hours or an hour more than have a similar situation that was what happened.
Yes, sir, and I will have the Director of Transportation go ahead and review those most common routes that we take to the Panhandle. That would be one that I would think would be the most,
Yes.
But we can come back through Odessa, hit, the interstate, but let us do a little bit of research and get back to you.
Yeah, the safety is most
Absolutely.
important. Thank you.
Can I add on to that? As far as traveling at night, have we ever looked at what the extra cost would be to avoid traveling late through night?
There's a lot of factors other than just cost. For example, let's use basketball playoffs. So if we go up the day of the game and on a Tuesday night, and then we spend a night, then they're going to miss 2 school days. So it has to do more than just cost. It's also loss of instructional times. We've seen school districts that have had issues with kids that are seniors when they spend a night after the last game. So there's a lot of different factors, but cost is not the determining factor, the lone determining factor.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill, what about, we were talking about the Panhandle. There's not a lot of roads, and I think you've driven up those roads that are 4 ways. What about maybe taking a day earlier, or like going during the day on those occasions when we have roads that are like that?
And the issue isn't so much during the day. It's like Mr. Rosales pointed out, it's coming back in the evening. Mr. Cudier pointed out too. It's after a late ball game. Say you play a 7 o'clock ball game,
Right.
and then you don't get out of there until 9:30. You feed the kids. It's 10 o'clock.
So we stay an extra night?
And that's, and that's something that's being discussed all the time, the loss of instructional times, you're keeping them there. There is a factor of cost. It is what it is, but that's not the determining factor.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we utilize 15-passenger vans?
No, sir,
We
it's
don't? Okay.
illegal.
I just want to make sure we don't, okay.
No, we do not. In fact, kids don't our students, we don't have vans that we let students travel out of town in.
Oh, that's
They're on
wonderful.
a bus.
Good.
No more questions? Okay, so we'll move on to approval of award of YST solicitation number 217041 RFP property insurance. Number 11, approval of award of YST contract number 201-70351 with the Department of State Health Services for dental services.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
going back to number 10,
Go
I
ahead.
feel that I need to abstain on that.
okay. Can we pull that one for a separate vote, please?
Yes.
Okay, so number 11, no questions on that one? Okay. Number 12, approval of YSD contract number 201-70357 with YWCA El Paso del Norte region for school facility use.
I just had a quick question on that. I know that it's for after-school programs, and looking at the information that was provided to us, are there any after-school programs that are available in the Northeast for the Parkland area? And
There's not that many.
Excuse me, they do have the 21st Century Grant at all of the Parkland area schools in the Northeast, and that's what most of them use because it lasts later, and it's also not just daycare, it's arts and crafts, music. They help them with their homework, tutoring, et cetera.
okay, thank you.
We're at number 13, approval of YSD contract number 201-70361 with Region 19 Head Start for Head Start coordination. And I do have a question on that one myself. So I'm wondering how does this work in cooperation with our own pre-Ks and all of that?
What Head Start does is they come to our pre-K in the morning or the afternoon, and they go to Head Start the other half day.
Oh, so they come to both?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, number 14, approval YSD contract number 201-70368 with Grand Canyon University for student internships.
Just a quick question. Is there any specific role that those student interns can work on? Because seeing that we had a presentation on ELL and the struggling that some of our students have, and maybe, I personally think the classroom size is a little big for ELL students, a 22-to-1 or 25-to-1. Is there any way we could utilize these students and maybe those classes to try to assist teachers that are having to teach advanced high and beginners in the same class?
Most definitely, and Bobby Russell will be working with Blanca Lopez on that, because that's who we work through for our interns.
Thank you.
Okay, number 15, approval of award of YSD contract number 201-70369 with Kuros Innovations LTD for professional services.
I have to ask the question, I don't even know who I talked to, is that, it seems like a lot of money. And I understand this, you get what you pay for, but I'm just curious, is that a reasonable amount? I mean, is that something that we're comfortable with, I guess?
Ms. Theodorella will address that for you.
That is a large amount of money. He's a Tier 1 vendor who's, that's a going rate. And about 5 years ago, just to kind of give you a scope, we brought in a presenter that was about $14,000. So their going rate depends on the presenter, and he is considered one of the premier presenters out there, and that's his daily rate. So that's about average. We know of some that go up to like $20,000 I've seen.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So am I reading right, the cost is offset by vendors who are helping sponsor the event? So taking that into consideration, what would be a per participant rate?
You're asking how much we charge for participants?
No, are participants expected to pay a registration fee? How much is the registration?
The registration fee for in-district, I believe it's $25, and out-of-district is about $50 or $60. I don't recall the exact amount, but we do charge more for out-of-district than in-district. And again, there's a vendor fee to actually, to be there as well. Pretty affordable. It's the only district of its kind in our region.
And do
The
they
only district,
receive,
the only presentation, I'm sorry?
and do they receive continuing education
They do.
credit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So number 16, approval of YSD contract number 201703 with Texas Tech University Health Services for study of pilot health program. Number 17, approval of YSD contract number 201-70387 with El Paso Pediatric Society for pilot health program. Number 18, approval of YSD contract number 201-70362 with Isleta del Sur Pueblo for coordination of student services. Okay, number 19, approval of YSD contract number 201-70405 with El Paso Community College and University of Texas at El Paso for college prep courses.
Ms. Woodruff, I ask that you pull that so I can abstain.
Pull number 19, please. And that takes us to number 20, approval of increase in the amount of $176,763 for awarded YSD solicitation 215036 RFP-RB2 District Repair Projects of Limited Scope, Rebid 2. I think I had a question about that one. Is that the one where we only received one vendor on that? No? No.
I'm going to refer to Ms. Sleeper or Christine, please, to assist me on this.
I don't believe Christina's with us this evening.
I'm sorry, is it number,
Oh, I thought she
is it
left.
number 20?
It's number 20.
Okay, so Christine, we're increasing the project amount only so that we can paint Del Valle. So
Okay.
we didn't have a project this large, so we had to increase just this one.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll move on to our policy action items. Approve updated revisions to local policy DNA performance appraisal evaluation of teachers. Okay. Number 2, approve revisions to local policy FFA student welfare, wellness, and health services. I had a question about this one. In the material, it says something about board members being on the shack, and I don't believe we've ever had that happen. Am I wrong about that, or?
No, ma'am. To my knowledge, I've never seen a board member on the SHAC committee.
And are we supposed to have somebody on that
To my knowledge,
committee?
no. However, we do have Carrie Raymond Holden, who is
there we
here
go. Here she
to talk
is.
a little bit. She is our SHAC coordinator.
Good evening. Yes, as a matter of fact, we have had board members join us on the shack, and you're all welcome to join us. If anyone would like to join us, please let me know, and I will make sure you're contacted when we have our meetings.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
The board just to be invited as a matter of course.
Absolutely. Is that possible? I'm sorry, you're leaving. No, is it possible just to have the board invited as whenever one of those meetings, and we could?
Ms. Carey, could you go to the mic, please? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll add the board members to the invites.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're moving on to our action items. Number 1, approval of award of YSD solicitation bond 15 CSP BP 11 upgrades and alterations to J.M. Hanks High School. I'd like to ask what those consist of, just because
What is
I'm interested.
some of the scope that'll be
Yeah,
involved is electrical and mechanical upgrades, restroom renovations, roofing, some heating and cooling that was identified to be replaced. And then a little bit of, we'll start the indoor athletic enhancements. We're going to replace the bleachers in the 2 gyms this summer.
Right.
So that's pretty much the scope of this first round.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. Rosales.
Alarm systems. I thought we had taken care of that before.
Well, we'll look at the fire alarms and see if there
Oh, I
needs
see.
to.
It's- okay.
Yeah, it's not the secure
Security.
entry or the visitor management
All right,
system.
thank you.
Okay, number 2, approval of awards under ISD solicitation number 217032, RFQ, professional services for projects of limited scope. Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
Mr. O'Neill, I'm assuming from looking at the different companies, these are all local companies?
Yes, sir, they are all local. What we asked finance to do in purchasing is to increase the pool. We had a very small pool the last time for these type of services, and this, we were allowed to get more vendors involved. So we're very pleased with the pool. If you notice, there was 14
Right.
and they were all awarded. This will give us the flexibility to choose somebody that might have an expertise in a certain area.
Dr. LaTorre, I'd just like to say thank you very much for this board and for the administration holding the line on using as many local vendors and making sure these dollars stay in the community. So thank you very much.
No, we understand the importance of that, and we've made a commitment to that from the beginning.
So from there, we move to closed executive meeting, then reconvene, announcements, and adjournment. Are there any other questions or comments that anybody?
Comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
I'd like to just share this real quick, and for those of you that have to deal with me all the time, I apologize, but I had a constituent grab me on Saturday morning at a restaurant, and he wanted to tell me about his daughter had been accepted into the early college high school at Isleta High School, and what a game changer this was going to be. He didn't use that word. He just said this was a great opportunity, and he impressed upon his daughter how important it was and how it was going to change things. This daughter will be the first child out of 5 that he's had that has gone to college. And so he's just thrilled that that's going to happen. And, he was just sharing it with me as a parent, not as a constituent. He was sharing as a proud parent. And so, on behalf of the Isleta and Parkland communities, this is a huge game changer. And so thank you to everybody who put this together, because I know it was a lot of work. The second thing he also told me, by the way, he is a bricklayer. You ever shaken the hands of a man who's a bricklayer?
Yes.
I did every day of my life because
right, your
my
dad.
dad was a bricklayer. Yes.
His hands are just as tough as his bricks, and he was talking about the fact that right now he's having to work in Las Cruces because he can't get a decent wage here in El Paso. And he goes, but I'm waiting for all these Isleta projects to start. And he wasn't lobbying me, okay, so let's just put that up there. He says, because you guys pay a fair wage. And he says, and I really appreciate that. And so I wanted to say again, thanks to the district for being the district that has a conscience and does the right things by the community. And so I appreciate that. And then the last thing, and this is really soapbox issue. I'm wound up about this one. Public education is hard. Public education, there are no magic bullets. There are no quick fixes. Public education is dedicated administrators and teachers and frontline staff every day getting up and putting their nose to the grindstone, as they say, working hard and having the vision. And we have the vision with our superintendent, we have the vision with our cabinet, we have the vision with our administrators, we have the people out there in the schools, our teachers, and all those people that make it happen. Folks, one thing I've learned in 2 years being on this board is that there's no magic pills. You've got to do the hard work. And we sit here and we talk about this every month, and for those poor associates that got to put up with trustees, we're going to continue to do that because we have that responsibility. But I just wanted to say that out loud because some people have the idea that if we do this one thing, it's going to change the whole world. It's not. It's that much that's going to change, and maybe not at all. So YSD, Dr. LaTorre, we are the district. We have the vision, we have the leadership, and we have the right people in the right places. And so thank you all very much. And, you know, we need to make sure that we share these thoughts with our leadership out on the campuses, because they are working so hard and they're trying to make a difference. So thank you very much.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Dr. De La Torre, excuse me, Ms.
Yes,
Woodruff.
ma'am.
I need to take you back to item 20. We had a brief sidebar here, and I want to clarify and ask you to let me amend the item. So this is the recommended motion. We're going to ask you, rather than from local funds, we're going to ask you to allow us to do a budget amendment and to use this from fund balance. As you may recall, I was going to bring you the deferred maintenance plan in September, but if I bring it to you in September, the school's not going to get painted in the summer, and we need to do it now while school is out. So I'm going to jump the gun a little bit and ask you to approve a budget amendment authorizing the use of fund balance in the amount of $226,000 for the painting of Del Valle during the summer, and we'll include that in the plan when we come back in September. All right? All right. I just wanted to make it clear, so when you see the change to the motion, you'll know why.
Thank you, Lindy.
I believe we're adjourned now.
No more.
Father's Day weekend?
Yes, you, how was yours?
Good.